Now, finally, on day 3, we are going to get down to business to show some love to the next generation.
Wherever I go, these guys come with us. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
There's a few people here. It's unbelievable.
You draw a big crowd. You draw a big crowd.
So, can you get a number? Yeah.
Yes,
So here's how this works, Brent.
Look at this, like the Johnny Carson.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what it feels like. Now I know what Johnny Carson felt.
Yeah.
No, you don't. But I got the good guests here.
Oh, by the way, no pictures, please.
He was joking, weren't you? Okay, let's show some love to the next generation. Because if there's ever a show that deserves love, it's the next generation.
Can you cross the other leg?
Yeah. This is what it was like, by the way, for 7 years. Photo op for Brent. Okay, everybody, just move to this side of the room for Brent. Actually, you know what? Everybody, raise your hands. Raise your hands. Give the Vulcan salute. Let's see it. Let's see it. Everybody, raise those hands. Okay, this is all for you, Brent.
Brent, are you going to ask them each a question too?
Yes, I asked some questions. We got fans on both sides asking questions. And we've got. I wish we could be here all day to ask questions, but we can't, so we're going to get right to it. So let's go back. Let's go back to the mid to late 80s. And let's go back to a time when it first came about that there was going to be a new Star Trek show. Like, how did you first find out about this? What was your first impression that there was going to be a new Trek series that was going to take place 80 years after the original series?
Wait, are you talking to me?
All 3 of you.
Oh. Gates, why don't you take that one? LeVar, do you remember what you were doing in the late 80s? Or mid-80s? Early 80s?
I wasn't born, so I was born in the 90s. Okay.
I remember I did an episode of Fantasy Island
Oh, yeah.
in the 80s.
Fantasy Island.
Yeah.
We ran into each other though at the audition.
We did, yeah.
We did.
Well, no, that wasn't you. That was Cheryl. What? You know what?
In joke, don't worry about
Is
it.
there a large screen somewhere?
There and there.
Yeah, we have a screen right here.
Yes, that's what people
so
are seeing.
if I don't look up, you'll understand.
So the question again.
Yeah.
The question again is, what was your first impression when you first found out, when you first went in to do a follow-up to the original series? A show that had a lot of fans and a lot of baggage.
You want me to do an impression? Is that what you're asking?
What was your
First
impression?
Impression of what? I'm sorry. My first impression back when I heard they were going to do another Star Trek series was, why? Why would they do? The first one was perfect. Why do they want to do another one? That's ridiculous. That was my impression.
How about you, LeVar?
My first question was, is Gene Roddenberry involved?
That was an impression.
Well, no, but it was a reaction. It was a reaction.
Fair enough.
My first reaction was, is Gene Roddenberry involved? I was a huge Star Trek fan when I was a kid, and if they were going to do another Star Trek, I wanted to make sure that that Gene was a part of it.
How about you, Gates?
You know, I really had not watched the first Star Trek. I'm sorry. I knew about these characters that I'd see posters of them in New York City, but I didn't know it. And to me, it was sort of like they're doing a new show. It's a series. I hadn't done a series. There's 3 women characters, and I went in and they said, anyone you want. So I didn't have any set thing of like, oh, this is the spaceship. And when I was actually doing the audition, I was doing a play somewhere, and the guy was going, oh, Star Trek's the best, and everything. And he was explaining to me what warp speed was and all that. I didn't know any of that.
Can you explain it to me?
Yeah. It's when you're just like driving normally, and then all of a sudden you go, and it just goes.
I'm sorry, I wasn't listening. What were you saying?
So, Gene Roddenberry, you talked about Gene Roddenberry. Let's talk about your first impressions. Not to do an impression.
He does a great Gene Roddenberry.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
not gonna do a great
Let's see
Gene
it.
Roddenberry.
Nobody else does Gene Roddenberry.
No, well, does anyone here do Gene Roddenberry? No. But Gene had a very, very high voice. He kind of, and he had an interesting way of talking. Remember? But he was, yeah. And, but what was your question?
Like, what was your first impression?
My first impression. Well, I've already done that, but my first recollection, is that all right? Yeah. Of Gene Roddenberry was, well, I'll tell you what, let me just tell you one quick story, because we had the first time we read through the script, we were at the Sheraton in Los Angeles. Yeah, we had oh, I don't think they called you. Oh yeah. Anyway, we did a reading. We did a reading of the script. And anyway, we were all invited to do the first read through of the script. And do you remember that,
Except for
LeVar?
me.
Oh no, that's when Ben Vereen was playing your part. That was before you were cast. No. We did you might remember this when I tell you. There was a big round table in a conference room at the Sheraton Hotel, and we were all there, and Gene says, all right, let's read. And Patrick started, and space, you know. He got to a line where he said, Mr. Data, and I went, wait, I'm sorry, is it data? I assumed it was data. The character's data? And Gene said, from now on, whoever says it first, that's the way it's pronounced. And that happened from then on. All of the alien cultures that we met, whoever said it first, that's the way it was pronounced. And
that was actually true about the way one handled props or did anything, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And so I think I was Data because Patrick was British, and he was the first one to say it. And I think it has actually influenced the way that word is said today.
In the culture.
In the culture, yeah, because I knew it as data. That's what I always said. Yeah. There's a little
That's a
bon mot,
very
as they
interesting
say
story. Yeah,
in France.
I know that. But I think sometimes with me and the other producers and writers on the show just go like, okay, you know, don't worry about the other show. We're going to do our own thing. So to sort of like alleviate some of the anxiety that you might have had.
Well, Gene talked to me about how different the show was going to be. And he said how he really wanted it to be the future that involved families and children and older people on board, and really talked about it in that way. And I know the reason the part was ultimately interesting, other than it was a paying job, was that I could be someone who was a mother, a scientist, had a high position, and also was allowed to have a sex life. You know, and that.
You had a sex life?
Well, sort of. Not as much as maybe she needed, but.
You had a sex life.
Make it now.
Yeah, certainly not as much as I needed. Yes. Ring, ring, ring. Those were the 3 speeds of data. You can ask Tasha Yar about that.
But I did know how to turn you off and on, darling.
I still do, by the way.
What were the biggest challenges of those first couple of years? I mean, Gene was obviously involved. I mean, he was the day-to-day producer of the show, but you know, there was a lot of like you were finding your footing, like finding your way, and I felt like by the 3rd season of the show, Next Generation really hit its stride.
Well, in the first 2 seasons, I literally did have a difficult time finding my way. I bumped into everything and everybody on the set because the visor took away my ability to see.
Well, did that present challenges for you as an actor?
Seeing, yes.
That's a good challenge.
I think I hit my stride 2nd season. I think I like found what it was, you know. But
Well, that was definitely your best season.
I know. I had it right.
You killed that season.
Actually, for me, one of the actual things that was hard, and I'm sure they'll corroborate this, I had a hard time with all the props and stuff not making noise because it was supposed to be this quiet atmosphere and ship, and I would just, I don't know, I would hit things and clunk it after someone's scene, and all of the props, I did have a lot of them, and so that was kind of a challenge, but, you know, whatever.
Gates, you were wonderful with props.
We called you Miss Props.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You know, I think that this is a very, I'm speaking from my heart. Sorry. You said 3rd season. 3rd season, definitely we sort of gelled mostly, but I think 2nd season we really started to come on, and I'll tell you why. We were not taken completely seriously, I think, in our 1st season. We were pretenders. What are they doing? Why are they here? Why are they doing another Star Trek? They can't possibly do what the original did. And I think something happened in the hiatus between the 1st and 2nd season. I got a phone call from Rick Berman, who was producing the show, and he said, "I've got really exciting news." And I said, "What's that?" And he goes, "We have a new character on the show coming on the 2nd season." And I went, "Oh, wow." He goes, "And let me just say this, big movie star." And I was like, "Wow, who is it?" He goes, "Well, guess." And I said, "Well, I'll give you a clue." And he said, "Jewish." And I said, "Gotta be Judd Hirsch, right?" And in fact, he said, "No, it's Whoopi Goldberg." And I was like, "What?" Because Whoopi was a huge movie star at that time. And he said she had called and said, "I want to be on the show." And they said, "Well, we'll write an episode for you." She said, "No, you don't understand. I want to be on the show." So they created Guinan. They built a set for her, 10 Forward, which was phenomenal. And I think the world sort of looked at us a little differently starting in our 2nd season. And it was like, Whoopi Goldberg is a regular on this show, and it made a huge difference, and I really think we were embraced by the general public at that point.
Well, yesterday, Whoopi Goldberg was right on the stage. She made her first ever appearance on camera. And by the way, did she not have a blast? She told the story, LeVar, that you were very instrumental in making that happen. and that it took a little bit of time. She kept asking you, what's going on?
Well, she had communicated to me that she wanted to be on the show, and I communicated to them, and they didn't believe me. So that's why it took a little time, because Rick Berman thought I was lying.
Scott, did she say anything about me?
She loved that deleted scene with Guyan and Dated. But you were talking about the legitimacy that she brought to the show.
Yeah.
And I told a story yesterday how when I was watching The Child, the first episode of that second season, my mom was walking by the TV and she's like, Whoopi Goldberg? And then she sat down and then she realized she was watching Star Trek. So, that's definitely legit, and it just really, like Michael Piller, I feel like really turned things around. And that's really when Star Trek: The Next Generation not only hit its stride, but by the third and the fourth season, when it was the 25th anniversary of Star Trek, Next Generation did something that I guess a lot of people didn't think would happen. Next Generation, the popularity eclipsed that of the original series. So, it is absolutely true, because I remember, like, when I was going to conventions in the 80s, I was one of the younger people there. And then when I started going to the conventions in like 90 or 91, there were all these kids running around in Next Generation uniforms. It was awesome. But like, when did you start to feel that okay, we're doing really, instead of really good stuff, really great stuff? Like, what were some of the episodes that you read just went?
For me, I thought The Host was a really interesting episode. Because it was written by Gabe Ryder, and I think it was the first time they ever had an episode that dealt with any issues of sexuality in that way. And I thought it was really well done because it opened up possibilities. It was trying to get people to think and to question, what is love? Is it physical? How much is physical? How much is spiritual? How much is mental? Just that thought. And I was really honored to be in that. But that was one of my favorites because of the way it dealt with issues, And the other one was First Contact. I think that's a brilliant episode in terms of philosophy of the Prime Directive. Do you get involved? How much do you do that? I really think that was awesome.
Brent, I wanted to ask you about a second season episode that I felt like really deepened the character of Data. It's one that's actually one of the best of the series, Measure of a Man.
Photographers were all applauding too. Measure of a Man was an incredible episode. It really was. It was brilliantly written. Who wrote that episode? Do you remember? Was it Melinda Snodgrass who wrote that? Or, was it? Yes? It was a fantastic episode. I think it dealt with something we're actually going to deal with one day. Because I saw a video the other day of a robot somebody had built that was so human, and he said, I could go all the way with this, but I don't think we're ready for it yet. In fact, did anybody see TED 2?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Unfortunately.
Yeah. Seth, I didn't say that. So I was talking to Seth MacFarlane, and he said, I had a plot for TED 2, and I was watching a trailer for some other movie, and he went, oh my God, that's my plot. I can't do that. So what am I going to do? And he said he went home that night, and he turned on Star Trek: The Next Generation, which he does often, he said, and Measure of a Man happened to be on that night, and he went, dang, that's the plot right there. And if you think about it, TED 2 is actually Measure of a Man. It's about whether Ted should become, be regarded as sentient and,
Brent, Measure of a Man is better than TED 2.
I don't remember, was I in TED 2? Oh no, I wasn't. Well, I guess.
I review movies for a living, so
yeah.
take it from me.
Do you?
Yes, I do.
Oh, no kidding. For who?
Yeah, you probably see me in the New York taxis.
For the which?
The New York taxis. Access Hollywood.
Oh, Access Hollywood, yeah, of
You
course.
review movies for Access Hollywood?
Yes, I review movies for Access
Yeah.
Hollywood.
Did you know that?
No, when did you start doing that?
In 2000.
Is that, you're in the back of the taxi cab.
Yes, I'm
Oh.
back.
That irritating
You're the guy.
I'm the
guy.
guy who has. I'm the guy who goes, see it. That's
Oh,
me.
man. Well,
Well,
you
thank
know
you.
what?
This is
I'm
awesome.
gonna be just a little nicer to you. Love your reviews, by the way. Spot on every time. It's incredible. It's like you and I have the same taste.
We do, because there is another third season episode. When I first saw it in 1990, when it aired for the first time, it was cinematic, it was epic, and it was Yesterday's Enterprise. When did you start to feel that this was a game-changing episode for Next Generation? LeVar.
What happens in Yesterday's Enterprise?
Maybe right now we started to realize.
A lot happens.
A lot happens.
In Yesterday's Enterprise.
Does it involve time travel?
Yes, it does.
Is Denise in it?
Is that the one where
Is it
where
Tasha?
It was
her sister comes?
Enterprise C.
Enterprise C. Oh, that's a very good episode.
Denise is not in it?
I think she is, but she plays her sister.
It's her sister.
No?
It's her.
It's her?
Oh, it's her. But it
It's
happened
her
at a different
in an alternate timeline.
She's still alive.
Guys, can I suggestion? Watch Yesterday's Enterprise. It's good.
I'm going to take your word for it because you review movies for a living.
It's good.
In fact, I'm just going to read your review of it.
Let's talk about another first for Next Generation and for Star Trek in general is The Offspring, directed by Jonathan Frakes. First episode. Okay, so you're all doing your thing on Next Gen. And then Jonathan goes, yeah, I'd like to direct an episode. What was that all like for everybody? And how assured and confident was he behind the camera?
Well, it was exciting. It was exciting for all of us. We were really jazzed to think that one of us was going to direct an episode. And Jonathan had always wanted to direct, so...
And he had been through months of school. And we had seen him go through this process where he was going to meetings and sitting in on scoring sessions and spotting sessions and spending countless hours in the editing suites with all of the different editors. So, you know, we had seen his commitment and dedication, and so we knew he was ready.
And we wanted it to be good. You know, it also had to be a very good script. And we had a really good guest star in Hallie Todd who played Law. She was crazy good, yeah. And so I think everybody, you know, just put in a little more effort than we ordinarily did. And maybe we were a little quieter. Well, of course we were, because Jonathan wasn't on the acting side. And he was by far the loudest of all of us. So, but I think we tried a little harder for that episode. And it kicked off his directing career, and he's still, you know, doing it and doing it well.
But it also kicked the doors open for a lot of Trek veterans to step behind the camera.
Jonathan really, you know, set the template. And if you went to Rick Berman and said you had a desire to do that, then he would say, go to school. Go to
Excuse
school.
me, I'm sorry to butt in on this, but it was different if you were female. I'm sorry, and I was not allowed to do the school in the same way that Jonathan, who I adore and I loved being directed by. I thought he's an amazing director, amazing, and I think I was in many of the episodes that he did. But from before I ever even accepted Star Trek, I said I was very interested in directing. I had directing experience, and it took me till my 7th season. And I'm just saying, I wanted to do all that, and it was much harder if you were female. Just want to say.
Now, because the last couple of years, it's been about equality, diversity. So it's still happening,
Yeah.
and hopefully it will change. But let's talk about another game-changing episode, the first cliffhanger for Star Trek: The Next Generation, The Best of Both Worlds, Part 1. And when you did Best of Both Worlds Part 1, like the script for Part 2 hadn't even been written yet, from what I understand.
Right.
So, like, talk about another episode that, like yesterday's Enterprise, when you see it, you'll know what I'm talking about, is cinematic and epic and the best of, I would say, one of Star Trek's finest hours across all the shows, not just Next Gen. But, you know, what was it like to sort of end the season on that note, fire, not knowing what the heck was going to happen in the season 4 opener?
Yeah, well, we had something to look forward to, really, because, you know, we were doing 26 episodes a season back then. Nowadays, particularly in cable television, you do maybe 10, 13 at most. And so we were beat up by the time we got to number 26. It was brutal. I remember when we would do the first episode of the season, we'd finish it, and Patrick would look over at all of us and go, only 25 more. But that was the first cliffhanger we did, wasn't it? And so it really did make it exciting to come back for the roller coaster again, because that's what it was like. And because we were all dying to know what's going to happen. Was you know, was he going to be aboard forever? And
Such a great enemy. I mean, the Borg.
oh, that was just maybe, there were two really great creations, I think, on Next Generation. One was the Borg, who was just an awesome obstacle, and the other was the holodeck, and that was allowed for so much fun to occur. Yeah.
Let's talk about the fun, because over the years, I've read a lot of books about the making of all the shows. And my time at conventions, seeing you guys on stage and elsewhere, the takeaway from all of that was that of all 5 shows, the cast of Next Generation was the tightest, the most fun, and the most like a family. So soon did you all just sort of gel together, and why did it take Patrick a little longer to embrace the fun? This way, Brent, this is time for an impression.
Of whom? No, you know what? We actually we got along really well almost from day one.
Very, very
yeah, it was just a magic. Somebody did a really good job in casting, not just where the acting was concerned, but where the personalities were concerned, because we were all friends instantly, and by the way, we still are. And
Including Will.
yeah, with Will and Colin, everybody. I loved going to work every day and seeing, you know, who I was going to be working with that day, whether it was going to be all of us on the bridge, which was always the most fun, or what pairing it was going to be. It was like this. I mean, I didn't know who was doing the panel today, and then they said, "Oh, you're doing it with Gates and LeVar," and I thought, "Oh, great, that's a good combo." And but it was that way no matter what the combination was. We always had fun. And the only difference in the first season, and I don't know how real this was, by the way, but we misbehaved as a unit, all of us. We were
Thinking in their heads, it's funny.
yeah, we were loud and boisterous, and we laughed all day long and had a really good time. And occasionally we would have a director who had difficulty with that. And we had one particular director in the first season who really felt we just wouldn't stop. And until they said the word action. And then we just, boom, we were into it. But up until that moment, and he had a hard time concentrating, and I can understand that. So Rick Berman called us all, he came down to the set, and he called us all into a room and told us, look, we've got a director here who's saying that he's not coming back again. if he has to work with you guys because you're out of control. And I was kind of snickering under my breath, you know, it's like, oh yeah. And suddenly Patrick goes, "We're here to work, not to play." I don't know what's wrong with you people, but in the Royal Shakespeare, you know, and he was just, you know, we were ashamed. I mean,
I wasn't even in the room. I don't know where I was. I wasn't on that day, huh?
oh wow, yeah. I think
Heard about it.
Jonathan was crying.
I heard.
I was snickering under my breath, but he was like appalled. I've never seen anything like this. And
Like a year later, Patrick is one of
the wildest of all of them.
absolutely singing loudly and doing all the
Yeah.
absolutely.
So we broke him down.
But
Broke his spirit.
what made it work too, because it was just, you know, we'd be on Planet Hell and the smoke would be there or whatever, and it's just hours and hours, and you have to hold for a special effect, and you're in the, I don't know, it just really was the only way you could kind of keep yourself going, and then, you know. And
We were working on stages that had no windows or no, you know, all for 16 hours a day. And I know some of us had to wear makeup. And it was, you know, everyone had their difficulties, they really did. But the only way we could stay sane, really, was to have a good time. And we really did. We had a really good time.
Well, LeVar, I know, like back in the day, I remember, I might have been in Philadelphia where I'm from, but I think you were one of the first members of the Next Gen cast to go to a convention.
Yeah, I believe I was. Yeah.
What was that like? I mean,
I had never been to one before, and I don't remember how much awareness there was of Next Gen, but I remember it as a positive experience. And I went back to the castmates and told them that it was a positive experience. And yeah, and I think that everybody has learned that it is indeed a positive experience.
very positive. Look at this crowd.
I feel that I was extremely reticent, and I was the last one in our cast who did a convention, I think. But I finally, as of last year, I think, started saying why. I was really scared. I had been stalked in my life very seriously, and I was really scared of going into a public place with a lot of people, because it had been a frightening experience for almost 3 years for me. So it took a long time for me to just kind of relax and go, God, these are the nicest people you could ever meet, and they're so supportive. And I've really grown and learned from the whole experience of it. So for me, I'm so much more relaxed, and I feel really differently about it. I think you guys are great, and I'm very appreciative.
You look like you got something to say, Brent.
No, I'm just looking at this room and going, how many people are in this room?
5,000. 5,000.
5,000.
They're so lucky.
Where's everybody else?
You know, I want to ask a question. Back in the day, you got asked a lot, and even today at the start of this panel, you got asked, what was it like to follow the original series? But I think another question, one I'm not sure if you've been asked this, is this. What was it like for you to see Next Generation followed by Deep Space Nine and Voyager, and then Enterprise and the JJ films?
Can I answer that? Or would you rather?
No, please.
Would you rather? Would you? You know what? I am really jazzed every time there's a new Star Trek, because I really feel that we belong to something that is the great American epic. I've said that before, but I really mean it. I mean, first of all, in America, what else has lasted 50 years? A half a century. And with no signs of slowing down. They just released a new film. They've got a new series coming. There's no end in sight, and I have a feeling there never will be. I think Star Trek is just part of the American fabric, and it's here to stay. And,
Tweet that out. Tweet that out.
and it's really cool to be a part of this great epic, along with so many amazing talents, both in front and behind the camera. It's been an awesome experience and continues to be. Yeah.
And when you think about it, it goes back to what Brent said earlier about doing 26 episodes a season. There was a production factory going on the Paramount lot back in the day, where once Deep Space Nine came on the air, there were 2 shows going on simultaneously for years and cranking out at the highest level stories that will last forever.
And I also, the more I have gone to conventions and talked with fans and people ask us questions about the show, it really is one of the only shows that has lasted so long that is for everyone in the family. I mean, everybody can see it, and everybody on some level can learn something about themselves and others, and it's just very significant in that way. There's, we'll see at these conventions, we'll see, the great-grandmother, the grandmother, it just goes on, and that's unbelievable.
Before I turn it over to some questions we got on the other side, yes. There's one film that can give The Wrath of Khan a run for its money. It is First Contact.
One of the greats.
But it wasn't just the story, that you had the Borg. Everything about that film
Alice Krieger.
was confident. It was such a confident, assured film, and that was infectious. It had action, it had heart, it had humor. Like, how far into the making of that movie did you realize, okay, this is a grand slam?
When I read the script, I mean, it was like such a good script, and when you hear the cast, Alfred Woodard, I mean, it was just
Alfred and
unbelievable
James
cast.
Cromwell.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah.
But I don't think you ever really know until you see it.
Right. But it was also written by Ron and Brent, who have both proved to be very creative humans.
Yes, they are.
Their own right, yeah.
All right, let's take it away. First question right on the side over here. Hi.
Hi. First of all 3 of you are amazing, but I have a question for LeVar. You've done amazing work with Reading Rainbow and inspired. The Kickstarter campaign, it was just nothing short of amazing. And as someone who in the 2nd grade was a finalist for the Reading Rainbow Young Writers and Illustrators contest, I was wondering, will you bring that back again? I think that would be something amazing to do.
The Young Writers and Illustrators contest?
Yes.
Well, that's a that is owned by PBS, and as you know, Reading Rainbow is back, but we're not on television. We're an app, we're on the web, we're in schools. I would love to bring that contest back, but we don't have the rights to it, unfortunately. And how was your story?
It was just a cute little story called The Pink Ant about an ant that's born a different color and is teased by all the other ants and then ends up becoming the queen ant, and then suddenly all the ants are pink.
Sounds like an episode of Star Trek to me.
Over here. I remember you.
Yes. I've asked a few questions, but I actually asked this one to Eric Menya, the Traveler, and it is a question about the first episode he appeared in, episode 5, season 1, where no one has gone before, and it's a small fan theory about it. If you remember, when they go to that place that is made of pure thought, they then have to focus on home to basically have the Enterprise home in on their galaxy and help the Traveler get them there. But my question was, were they thinking of the place of thought when they got there? And if not, because the place of thought creates what you're thinking of, could the rest of Star Trek be a figment of the Enterprise crew's imagination?
Good luck, fellas.
You know, I'm beginning to wonder whether you're a figment of our imagination. You know what? I'm not near as familiar with that episode as you are. But that's it sounds great.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
I'm gonna watch that too.
I'm going to watch that one.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
But in answer to your question, yes.
Thank you. Next.
Good question, though.
Good afternoon. Please allow me to thank you for all of the years of joy that your artistry has given all of us. Thank you. I'd like to ask all three of you to please comment on the differences in acting on stage, for the camera, and specifically in Star Trek. Thank you.
You start, LeVar.
Well, the difference between acting on stage and acting for the camera is literally in the size of the performance. Acting for the camera is a very intimate experience, and on stage you have to be larger than life. Star Trek itself, though, is more stylized than I think than you would ordinarily recognize. That it is. We had guest stars that came on and really had a difficult time with the pacing and the language. It is a specific. It's a heightened reality that we're all experiencing there, and I think there's more to it than meets the eye.
And I also think that a lot of the aliens, the makeup is almost like a mask, and that's where it's the heightened reality. You have to be a little higher level when you're doing that sort of acting. But I think, you know, for actors, it could be the same approach as LeVar said. But I know that for me, personally, when I was filming, having never filmed in a TV episode before, I just did not understand the concept of hitting your marks. And they would put sandbags down to stop me because that was the shot. And I walked over the sandbags because I was a dancer, and so I thought, okay, you can do it, you can handle the obstacle, and they're like, no, we put it there to get you to stop. You know? So it took me a little while to understand little subtle things like that.
That wasn't so subtle, though.
No, I know.
They put huge ass sandbags in the middle of the floor.
And I was acting my heart out, but off camera, yeah.
Sandbags, something like the size of this couch. You know what, though? Star Trek has a language that is different as well. And I used to say it was like, acting on Star Trek was like a combination of doing Shakespeare and flying around your house with a towel tied around your neck, you know, when you're a kid. And it was that sort of perfect combination of uber serious and uber silly all at the same time. And it came together to form something unique.
Right over here. So don't be shy.
What other sci-fi do you like? Since you, I know you do work at Actinar and you do Star Trek stuff, but what other sci-fi what other sci-fi are you interested in?
What other sci-fi are you
Well,
interested in?
I personally was very interested in Independence Day. And what's that? Release me. Yeah. Okay. Security? Yeah, well, that was Independence Day 1, and as some of you know, there was an Independence Day 2 this year. Only some of you know that, because I think the same number of people went to see Nemesis.
I think more people want to see it.
But I have this idea for my character in Independence Day, and I just want you guys to send it out there. Twitter would be a good place to Independence Day or to Roland Emmerich or somewhere to say, I think there should be a spin-off film just of Dr. Oaken. Where he like comes above ground for the first time in 50 years. And, I was going to say Dr. Oaken comes out, but I don't want to go with that. Because that happened already in this film, I think. Anyway, I leave that to you. But what about you? Sci-fi?
Sci-fi that I liked? Well, I remember loving Dune when I first read it.
Yeah.
I couldn't put it down. I really feel the ones that I get into are the ones that really have ethical choices and really that's the kind, as opposed to just there's something scary out there. Although that's not true because I loved Alien, I have to say. Yeah.
Blade Runner.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. Fine.
Independence Day.
I loved it. Okay.
I'm a huge science fiction fan, I always have been, and read a lot of sci-fi. And if there's anybody out there who hasn't read any Octavia Butler, run to your nearest bookstore or download it on your nearest device. The Exogenesis trilogy is just fantastic. But Blood Child as a short story is a perfect piece of writing.
You know, I was doing a panel on CNN, and someone asked what was my favorite series finale of all time, and it was right after Breaking Bad had been on, and I said my favorite series finale is the series finale for Star Trek: The Next Generation. All Good Things was brilliant. It's powerful, it's cinematic, and what was it like filming that last episode, even though you were rolling right into your first feature?
The thing I remember most, or one of the things I remember most about shooting that final episode was that we were all so tired and emotional. And we did some location work in a vineyard, and that was the day we shot that footage. Whoopi was hosting the Academy Awards for the first time. And it was just a very heady sort of moment that here we were ending 7 years of one thing, beginning a movie, and there was one of our castmates, in the center square of the largest event in show business every year. Pretty cool.
I have no memory of it. I have no memory of yesterday. No, I mean it was an awesome episode and a great. I remember reading it and thinking, man, they nailed it. That was Ron and Brennan who wrote that, and they really nailed it. And that was very pleasing to know that we were going to finish on a high note and not do something disappointing.
I was shooting a John Wells pilot with Jane Curtin up in Portland during the last episode filming. And coming back and doing I remember getting things glued into my head that, it was taking on and off the makeup that took a long time, but we were exhausted. There was one day where I swear it was like a 23-hour, I had like 23-hour shoot or something because the makeup took so long. But it was emotional. I think I was so glad we went into the movie afterwards just because it gave us time to actually talk about stuff, decompress a little bit. But it was, it was a really wonderful, powerful time. And my son was 3 at the time and had sort of grown up on the set. I'll make this short. And, he'd been in the trailer, he'd been around, he knew Uncle Brent, he knew everybody's things that they wore.
My godson.
And when we went in for the movie and they're blowing up the ship, I thought, wow, that'd be cool, it was really amazing. And I don't know what I was doing. I walked in and he saw it and it was like his home and he burst into tears and was crying and I'm like, no, it's pretend. And it was like, so there was a lot going on. I was realizing that's not going to be there. He learned to walk on the bridge. I mean, he literally walked around on the bridge. So it was powerful. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Another question over here.
Hi, thank you for coming once again. I really enjoy you all. Yesterday, I really enjoyed Whoopi Goldberg yesterday. She really is, not only is she a character on Star Trek Next Generation, she really enjoyed it. And it's really dear to her. But she said the first time she came on the bridge, she started laughing because you all were swaying side to side. And I wondered, was that one of the worst things you had to do, or can you tell us something about that?
We enjoyed it,
One
yeah.
of the worst things was like looking at the rice when there's nothing there and Cosmo.
For me, the worst thing was having to learn the line.
Yeah.
Say it was just, well, no, the worst thing was the makeup, by far. But no, when the ship shakes were fun.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we enjoyed those.
Yeah, she seemed to enjoy that also.
Yeah. We all had a different style. If you look at it, Patrick did this whole shaking thing. Jonathan would throw his body across the room.
Really bad balance.
Thank you so much.
What about the banquets? When we would go to a planet and we'd have one of these banquets, that would also be just awful because we would have these weird ass foods that would be on the buffet. Like we'd go, what is that? Is it animal, vegetable, mineral? And then it would just get congealed all day and we'd be shooting the scenes and you'd be having to pretend to eat that stuff and it would smell.
Good times.
Good times.
When the series ended, or when the individual films ended, did you keep anything? Like keep like a uniform? Did you keep your visor? Did you keep anything? Just
Steel?
Yeah, steel. Steel.
Well, I'll tell you what. We each had about, I think, 7 or 8 uniforms that they made that were our uniforms that they would alternate. And at the end of the series, I asked Mary Howard, who was the producer. She was one of the producers and on-set producer, and I said, she was a line producer. Yeah, can I keep one of my uniforms? And she said, no. And I went, what? But they were made for me. There's 7 of them. What are they going to do with them? And she said, no, I'm sorry, you can't have one. And I went, okay. So the last day of shooting, we all met at a restaurant after the shoot was over, and I arrived to find Gates and Jonathan in their uniforms. They had walked out in them, and I made the mistake of asking.
No, I still had it on.
Yeah, it was that. But I never asked again. And so I have one of the movie uniforms that I drove home in. But you know what happened to them all is they sold them all to Christie's and they auctioned them off, and now some of you may have my uniform and you paid way too much for it.
Well, actually, I'm not allowed to say who, but I was given a prop that I used on Guinan, actually, for her tennis elbow. And I had helped with how to develop and work on this prop, and I'm actually going to be auctioning it off for my nonprofit this weekend.
I have a couple of souvenirs.
Can you see through them?
I never could.
We did a picture in one the other day.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. As one of the Kickstarter rewards for the Reading Rainbow Kickstarter, there was a dinner with Brent and LeVar, and part of the experience was that I would bring the visor and they could put it on and have pictures taken with it. And it was a very high ticket item, and we recently had that dinner in Los Angeles, and I was a member of the DuPont family who bought it.
And we both took photos.
Yes.
Wearing the visor.
So there are pictures that I have it, photographic evidence on my phone. There's a picture of Brent Spiner wearing the visor.
Yeah. And I never complained. Which was unique.
Really, he bitched every day about his makeup and his contacts. He did.
Spiner the whiner, they call it.
Very true. Very true.
Is there anything you would like to say to the 5,000 fans in this room about just anything, your experience, your appreciation, whatever you want, before we leave?
So he's showing her the picture of me. And
Oh, he really does have it.
Can y'all see it?
getting tight on that?
He's going.
Yeah, I'm seeing it now. Yeah, oh.
And so the caption that I wrote on Twitter was, ran into an old friend the other day. There was something about him that was different, but I couldn't put my finger on it.
Yeah. Thank goodness you didn't. You know, you can still handle a close-up, you know that? You looked good there.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, what we're talking about, something profound?
Just something you would like to say to the fans.
Yeah, well, just, you know, obviously thank you all so much. I'm so grateful to you all for embracing us and the show and continuing to. I think Star Trek's a great thing. And I think, you know, as the world becomes more and more complicated and difficult, when you look at Star Trek and the values of Star Trek, that's really where we should be.
And I would just like to say thank you for allowing us to be icons in a way that I feel every culture needs, that are positive models. And be nice to people, because if we all can do that and we can all believe in a positive future, our children might actually be able to grow up and have a good life. And also, everything does matter. So vote and really help to make things happen that you want to see happen. It does take every one of us, okay? Thank you for your support.
I agree with Gates, and I think the thing that I have always appreciated about Star Trek, in addition to the high ideals and the conscious diversity, is that I've always been inspired by Star Trek to aspire to the best that I can possibly be. And I think some of you out there may share that feeling, that Star Trek has always pointed out what we can do right about being human and in the service of being human. And as Brent said, in the world in which we live today, we really need that. Gene's vision continues to be in a world full of great storytelling, representation of the future that at its core is all about the hope that humanity can be when we get our shit together. So.
The thing I noticed with the election and everything is so many people are looking for these simple answers and simple solutions. And as you see in Star Trek or anything, you have to think. There are no simple solutions. You have to change and adjust and be tolerant and think. So think.
As the saying goes, all good things. Ladies and gentlemen, LeVar, Burton, Brent, Spiner.